Nothing like fixing a leaky sink in your basement to really put life in perspective. There I was, wrench in hand, lying on my back under rusty pipes that had seen better decades, when I heard my wife Lena's voice drifting down from the kitchen above. She was on the phone again, and her tone had that particular edge that made my stomach clench. "If he doesn't like it, he can sign the papers," she said, followed by that laugh. "You know the one, the kind that sounds like breaking glass wrapped in silk. I'm Jack Morrison, by the way. 42 years old, IT manager at a mid-sized insurance company, and apparently the kind of husband who gets threatened with divorce over birthday party guest lists. The American dream, right?" The pipe wrench slipped in my grip, and I cursed under my breath. "Nothing like a plumbing disaster to pair with a marriage going down the drain," I muttered to the moldy ceiling joists. "Our house sits in Meadowbrook Estates, one of those cookie-cutter suburban developments where everyone pretends their lives are perfect, while their marriages slowly rot behind manicured lawns and freshly painted shutters. The neighbors wave and smile, but they are always watching, always listening, always ready to feast on the next bit of drama that seeps through these paper-thin walls. I'd built everything for Lena. 15 years ago, when we were young and stupid and thought love could conquer credit scores, I'd worked double shifts to afford the down payment on this place. Back then, she'd kiss me when I came home covered in grease and gratitude. Now she looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in. The sink finally stopped dripping, but the conversation upstairs was just getting started. I climbed the basement stairs, each step creaking like my knees, and found Lena in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, eyes bright with the kind of excitement she used to reserve for me. "Of course you should come, Victor," she purred. "It's my birthday. I want you there." Victor, her boss. The golden boy with the corner office and the BMW that cost more than I made in 6 months. The man whose name had become a constant presence in our house dropped into conversations like little bombs designed to remind me of my inadequacy. Your boss would handle this better. Victor would stay calm. Victor would actually know how to lead. It wasn't even about work anymore. It was personal, sharpened into a weapon she used whenever she wanted me smaller. I'd asked her to stop, more than once. Told her it bothered me, asked her not to bring another man into our marriage like he was some kind of judge. She'd just roll her eyes and smirk. "Maybe if you were more like him, I wouldn't have to," she'd say. "He'd be a better husband than you." Those words had been sitting in me for weeks now, heavy and sour, like something spoiled that I couldn't quite digest. Lena hung up and turned to me with that bright, artificial smile she'd perfected over the years. "That was Victor. He's coming to my party tomorrow." My stomach dropped. "Lena, we talked about this. It's supposed to be family. Maybe a few close friends." "He is a close friend," she said, her voice taking on that dangerous edge. "Closer than most." "What's that supposed to mean?" She stepped closer, and I could smell her perfume, the expensive stuff she only wore for special occasions, or apparently for phone calls with her boss. "Here's how it is, Jack," she said, her voice cold and sharp as winter morning. "Either I invite Victor and that's final, or I file for divorce. I'm not living by your rules anymore." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to laugh and say she was kidding, that she'd never throw away 15 years of marriage over a birthday party guest list. The joke never came. Something in me stopped negotiating in that moment. Something that had been bending and compromising and swallowing pride for years finally snapped clean in half. "Okay," I said quietly. She blinked, clearly expecting a fight. "Okay, what?" "Okay, invite him, have your party, celebrate however you want." The confusion on her face was almost worth it. Almost. I walked past her to my home office, the converted spare bedroom where I kept my computer and the filing cabinet full of important papers, insurance documents, tax returns, and yes, those divorce papers my lawyer had drawn up 6 months ago when things first started getting really bad, the ones I'd never had the courage to serve. I pulled them out, found a pen, and signed my name on every line marked with a yellow sticky note. John Michael Morrison. John Michael Morrison. John Michael Morrison. Each signature felt like closing a door I'd never be able to open again. When I walked back to the kitchen, Lena was still standing there, probably planning the seating arrangement for her precious Victor. I set the papers on the counter next to her coffee cup. "There," I said. "Problem solved." She looked down at the documents, and the color drained from her face. "Jack, what?" "You gave me 2 choices," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "I picked one." The next morning felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life through a window. Lena moved through the house in a whirlwind of preparation, hanging streamers and arranging flowers as if nothing had changed, as if the signed divorce papers weren't still sitting on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Our daughter Anna, 16 and full of the kind of righteous anger that only teenagers can muster, sat at the breakfast table scrolling through her phone with aggressive thumb swipes. "So you're really going to ruin Mom's birthday?" she said without looking up. "I'm not ruining anything," I replied, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Okayest Dad." Lena had given it to me as a joke 3 Christmases ago. I thought it was funny then. "You signed divorce papers the day before her party. That's like psychopath behavior, Dad. Kids today, everything's either literally the end of the world or psychopath behavior. No middle ground." "Your mother gave me an ultimatum," I said. I responded to it. Anna finally looked up, her eyes, Lena's eyes, flashing with indignation. She just wanted her boss at her party. It's not that big a deal. Then why was she willing to end our marriage over it? That shut her up for about 30 seconds. Then she went back to her phone, probably posting something on TikTok about dads who don't measure up. The modern teenager's solution to everything: broadcast your family drama to strangers on the internet. Lena swept into the kitchen wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, red silk, expensive looking, the kind of thing she used to save for our anniversary dinners back when we still had those. "The caterer will be here at 3, she announced, not quite meeting my eyes. The party starts at 6. "What do you want me to do?" She paused, clearly not having expected the question. "I don't know. Whatever you want. It's not like..." She gestured vaguely at the divorce papers. "It's not like I'm your husband anymore. Jack, please. Not today?" But I wasn't trying to start a fight. Something strange had happened when I signed those papers. A weight I'd been carrying for years had simply lifted. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt clear-headed, focused. "I'll stay out of your way," I said. "Let you enjoy your party." Relief flickered across her face. "Thank you." I spent the afternoon in the garage, my sanctuary, organizing tools and pretending to work on my old Camaro while actually thinking, planning. The garage was where I did my best thinking, surrounded by the honest smell of motor oil and the familiar weight of wrenches and screwdrivers. Tools that did what they were supposed to do, unlike people. My sister Mags called around 2 o'clock. "Heard through the neighborhood grapevine that there's drama at the Morrison house," she said without preamble. Mags had never been one for small talk. "News travels fast in Meadowbrook Estates. Mrs. Patel saw you carrying papers around yesterday. She's convinced you're either getting divorced or joining a cult. I told her you're too boring for either, but now I'm not so sure." I laughed despite myself. Mrs. Patel was our next-door neighbor, a sweet woman in her 70s who treated the neighborhood like her personal soap opera. She wasn't malicious, just invested. Well, you can tell Mrs. Patel she was half right. Silence on the other end. Then, "Jack, what did you do?" I told her everything. The ultimatum, the papers, the party. Mags listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. She was a nurse, used to dealing with crises, but family drama always hit different. "So what's your plan?" she asked when I finished. "Plan? Come on. I know you, little brother. You don't just roll over and die. You're planning something." She was right, of course. I was planning something. I just wasn't sure what yet. "Maybe I am," I admitted. "Good. Lena's been treating you like garbage for years. About time you grew a spine." "Mags, I'm serious. That woman has been tearing you down piece by piece, and you've just taken it. Maybe it's time she learned what happens when you push a good man too far." After we hung up, I sat in the garage for a long time, watching the shadows grow longer through the dusty windows. The house was getting busy. Caterer's truck in the driveway, delivery men carrying tables and chairs to the backyard. Lena's voice directing traffic, bright and excited. Around 5:30, I heard a car door slam and looked out to see Victor's BMW pulling into our driveway. The man himself emerged like he was stepping onto a red carpet, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He carried a bouquet of roses and a gift bag from some expensive boutique downtown. I watched him walk to our front door, watched Lena answer it with a smile that could power the whole neighborhood. Watched her hug him just a little too long, watched his hand rest on her waist just a little too familiarly. That's when the plan crystallized. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I'd looked up 3 months ago but never had the courage to use. Jessica Hartwell, Victor's wife. I'd met her exactly twice, once at the company Christmas party, once at a charity golf tournament Lena had dragged me to. Both times, she'd struck me as intelligent, elegant, and completely unaware that her husband was a predator in an expensive suit. My fingers hovered over her contact information for a long moment. Once I sent this message, there would be no going back. No pretending everything was fine, no more swallowing my pride and hoping things would get better. I typed, Mrs. Hartwell, this is Jack Morrison, Lena's husband. I have some information you deserve to know about your husband. If you want the truth, I suggest you come to 1247 Maple Street. Tonight, around 8 o'clock. I stared at the message for another minute, then hit send. The party was in full swing when I walked back into the house. 20 or 30 people milling around the living room and spilling into the backyard, drinking wine and eating expensive appetizers and pretending they weren't all watching Victor and Lena like they were the evening's entertainment. And they were entertaining, I had to admit. Lena glowed in his presence, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm when she talked, playing the perfect hostess. Victor basked in the attention, holding court like he owned the place. Maybe he thought he did. I grabbed a beer from the kitchen and positioned myself where I could see the front door. 8 o'clock came and went. So did 8:15. I was starting to think Jessica had deleted my message without reading it when the doorbell rang. Lena was in the middle of some story about her latest project at work, gesturing with her wine glass when I opened the door. Jessica Hartwell stood on my front porch, and she was magnificent. Tall, blonde, wearing a black dress that whispered money and power. But it was her eyes that caught my attention, ice blue and absolutely furious. "Mr. Morrison," she said in a voice like silk wrapped around steel, "I got your message." "Mrs. Hartwell," I said, stepping aside to let her in. "Thank you for coming." She walked into my living room like she owned it, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor with the authority of a woman who'd never doubted herself. The party noise dimmed as people noticed the new arrival, a striking blonde in black who clearly didn't belong to anyone's usual social circle. I watched her scan the room, her trained eye cataloging faces until she found what she was looking for. Victor stood near the fireplace, his arm casually draped around Lena's shoulders, both of them laughing at something one of the other guests had said. Jessica's face went very still. "How long?" she asked quietly. "I don't know for certain," I replied. "But I found text messages, 3 months' worth." She nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then she walked across the room like a heat-seeking missile. I have to give Victor credit. He saw her coming. His face went through several interesting color changes as his wife approached, and he actually tried to step away from Lena. Too little, too late. "Hello, darling," Jessica said, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet room. "Lovely party. I hope you don't mind that I crashed it." Lena looked confused, glancing between Victor and his wife like she was trying to solve a puzzle. The other guests sensed drama and started gravitating closer, drinks in hand, ready for the show. "Jessica," Victor stammered, "what are you doing here?" "Oh, I got an invitation," she said, her smile sharp enough to cut glass, "from someone who thought I should know how my husband spends his evenings." That's when Lena figured it out. Her face went pale, then flushed red, then pale again. She looked at me across the room, and I raised my beer bottle in a little salute. "Victor," Jessica continued, her voice getting louder, "would you like to explain to all these nice people why you've been telling me you're working late 3 nights a week when you're actually here, playing house with another man's wife?" The room went dead silent, except for the soft jazz music still playing from the speakers. Someone's wine glass hit the floor and shattered. "Jessica, please," Victor said, reaching for her arm. "Not here. Not like this." She jerked away from him. "Not like what? Not publicly? Not where people can see what kind of man you really are?" Lena finally found her voice. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "Oh, there's been a misunderstanding, all right," Jessica snapped, turning on her. "I understood that when I married him, he'd be faithful. I understood that when he said he was working late, he was actually working. Silly me." "Jessica," Victor tried again. "Shut up." She pulled out her phone and started reading. "March 15th. Can't wait to see you tonight. Jack's working late. March 22nd. Your hands drive me crazy. April 3rd. Victor makes me feel alive again." Each quote hit the room like a physical blow. I watched the guests' faces cycle through shock, embarrassment, and barely concealed glee. Nothing like a good scandal to spice up a suburban birthday party. Lena was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "How did you get your text messages? Let's just say your boyfriend isn't as careful with his phone as he thinks he is." Jessica's smile was arctic. "Did you really think you could carry on an affair in a company where I know half the board of directors?" Victor had gone from red to gray to green. "We need to talk about this privately." "We needed to talk about this privately 3 months ago before you decided to stick your dick in your subordinate." The gasps from the crowd were audible now. Mrs. Patterson from down the street actually clutched her pearls. Mr. Chen started edging toward the door. I stayed where I was, leaning against the kitchen door frame, watching my wife's perfect birthday party implode in real time. It was better than cable. "This is my house," Lena said, trying to regain some control. "I think you should leave." Jessica laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "Your house? Honey, this is about to be your ex-husband's house. And given what I know about your little side business with my husband, you might want to start looking for a good lawyer." "Side business?" I straightened up. This was new. "Oh, you didn't know?" Jessica turned to me with predatory interest. "Your wife has been doing some freelance consulting for Victor's clients. Off the books. Very lucrative, from what I can tell." Lena's face went white. "That's not 5,000 here, 3,000 there. All cash payments, none of them reported to the IRS. I'm sure they'll be very interested in that information." The room was spinning now, guests grabbing coats and purses, mumbling excuses, and fleeing for the exits. The party was over, but the real show was just getting started. Victor made one last desperate play. "Jessica, if we could just go home and discuss this." "Home?" She turned on him with renewed fury. "You want to go home? Fine. Pack your bags. You've got 24 hours to get your shit out of my house." "Our house?" "My house. My money bought it. My name's on the deed. You're just the cheating bastard who's been living there." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at me. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for the invitation. This was illuminating." And with that, she walked out, leaving behind a room full of shattered glass, spilled wine, and the smoking ruins of 2 marriages. Victor stood there for a moment, looking lost, then followed his wife out the door without another word. I heard his BMW start up and drive away. Lena and I were alone, except for Anna, who was standing at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, eyes wide with shock. "Dad?" she said in a small voice. "What just happened?" "Your mother's birthday party," I said. "How'd you like it?" Lena rounded on me, fury replacing embarrassment. "You bastard! You planned this!" "I responded to your ultimatum," I said calmly. "You wanted Victor at your party. You got Victor at your party, along with his wife, which was a nice bonus. You ruined everything." "I ruined everything?" I set down my beer and walked closer. "Lena, I've been watching you destroy our marriage for months. Tonight I just gave you an audience." She slapped me then, hard enough to make my ears ring. Anna gasped from the stairs. 15 years, Lena hissed. 15 years of marriage, and you throw it away over jealousy." "I didn't throw anything away. You did, the moment you decided Victor was more important than your family." "He makes me feel special. He makes me feel valued. He makes you feel like a mistress, because that's what you are." She slapped me again, but I caught her wrist this time. "We're done here," I said quietly. "The papers are signed. Find somewhere else to sleep tonight." "This is my house, too." "Not anymore. Check the deed. Check who's been paying the mortgage for 15 years while you were climbing the corporate ladder. Then pack a bag and get out." For the first time since I'd known her, Lena Morrison looked genuinely afraid. And for the first time in years, I felt genuinely free. The next morning, I woke up alone in my own bed for the first time in 15 years. Lena had left sometime after midnight, taking 2 suitcases and most of her jewelry. She'd also taken Anna, who hadn't spoken to me since the party, except to text that she was staying with Mom until you come to your senses. I made coffee in the quiet kitchen, noting the absence of Lena's morning routine, the hairdryer, the clicking heels, the constant stream of phone calls that started before she was even fully dressed. The silence was almost overwhelming. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. with calls from neighbors, coworkers, and distant relatives who'd somehow already heard about the party. Word traveled fast in suburbia, especially when it involved adultery and public humiliation. The first call I actually answered was from Eddie Kowalski, my oldest friend and the owner of Murphy's Tavern, the dive bar where I'd been drowning my sorrows for the past few months. "Jesus Christ, Jack," he said without preamble. "Please tell me the story I heard about last night isn't true." "Depends what you heard. That you invited some guy's wife to your house to catch him cheating with Lena, and it turned into a public shit show that ended with divorce papers and the cops being called." "The cops weren't called," I corrected. "Everything else is pretty accurate." Silence on the other end. Eddie had known me since high school, back when I was the quiet kid who fixed everyone's computers and never caused trouble. This was definitely out of character. "You want to talk about it?" he asked finally. "Not really." "You want to drink about it?" "That's more like it." I spent the afternoon at Murphy's, nursing beers and fielding questions from the regulars who'd heard various versions of the story. Eddie kept the conversation light, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He'd watched my marriage slowly disintegrate over the past year. listened to me complain about Lena's increasing coldness and Victor's growing presence in our lives. "So what's next?" he asked during a quiet moment. "Divorce proceedings, I guess. Division of assets, custody arrangements for Anna." "That's not what I meant," I looked at him. "What did you mean?" "I mean, what are you going to do about the fact that half the town thinks you're either a genius or a psychopath?" It was a fair question. The story was already spreading, mutating as it passed from person to person. By evening, I'd probably be either a wronged husband who'd gotten justified revenge or a manipulative bastard who'd destroyed 2 marriages out of spite. "I don't really care what people think," I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. "You should care about what Anna thinks." That hit home. My daughter hadn't spoken to me since the party, and her social media was full of vague posts about toxic masculinity and emotional abuse. 16-year-olds saw everything in black and white. There had to be a victim and a villain, and she decided I was the villain. "She'll come around," I said, trying to convince myself as much as Eddie. "Will she, or will Lena poison her against you?" Before I could answer, the bar door opened and Victor walked in. He looked like hell, wrinkled clothes, bloodshot eyes, the kind of 5 o'clock shadow that suggested he hadn't been home since yesterday. The conversation in the bar died as every head turned toward him. Eddie tensed beside me. This could get ugly. Victor spotted me immediately and walked over, swaying slightly. He'd been drinking, but not here. "You son of a bitch," he said, loud enough for the whole bar to hear. "You destroyed my life." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly. "I just shined a light on what was already there. 23 years of marriage. Gone. Because you couldn't handle your wife finding someone better." The bar was dead silent now. Even the jukebox seemed to sense the tension and had stopped mid-song. "Someone better?" I stood up, surprised by the anger rising in my chest. "You were fucking another man's wife. That makes you better?" "She came to me. She wanted me. She wanted someone to make her feel important. You were just convenient." Victor's face flushed red. "At least I could satisfy her. At least I made her feel alive." That's when I hit him. I'm not a violent man. Never have been. But something about the smug satisfaction on his face, the way he said, "satisfy," like he was marking his territory. It flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. The punch caught him square in the jaw and sent him stumbling backward into a table. Glasses crashed to the floor, and suddenly the whole bar was in motion. People jumping up, Eddie grabbing my arm, someone shouting for everyone to calm down. Victor touched his lip and came away with blood. "You're going to regret that." "I regret a lot of things," I said, "but that's not one of them." He looked around the bar, taking in the faces of the people watching us. Some looked shocked, others entertained, but none looked particularly sympathetic to his situation. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah, it is." He left without another word, and gradually the normal bar noise resumed. Eddie bought me another beer and didn't say anything about what had happened. That was the thing about Eddie. He understood that sometimes a man needed to hit something, and sometimes that something deserved to be hit. But as I sat there, nursing my beer and my bruised knuckles, I couldn't shake the feeling that Victor was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video. Impressive right hook. We should talk. JH. Jessica Hartwell. Someone had filmed the fight and posted it online. Of course they had. This was 2024. Everything was content now. I typed back, "What did you have in mind?" Her response came immediately. "Revenge. The kind that really hurts. Interested?" I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about Lena's betrayal, Victor's smugness, Anna's disappointment, thinking about 15 years of marriage reduced to a pile of signed papers and a viral video of me punching my wife's lover in a dive bar. I typed, "Very interested." And just like that, I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Jessica Hartwell lived in the kind of house that made my suburban split level look like a garden shed. Gated community, circular driveway, the works. When I pulled up in my 10-year-old Honda, I felt like I was delivering pizza to royalty. She answered the door herself, dressed in jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than my car payment. Without the formal dress and righteous fury, she looked younger, more approachable, but her eyes still held that calculating intelligence that had impressed me at the party. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for coming. Call me Jack, and thank you for the invitation." She led me through a house that belonged in a magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked original and expensive. We ended up in a study lined with law books and dominated by a massive mahogany desk. "Drink?" she asked, moving to a well-stocked bar cart. "Whatever you're having." She poured 2 glasses of something amber and handed me one. It tasted like smoke and money. "So," she said, settling into a leather chair across from me, "let's talk about what we're really dealing with here." I waited. "Victor's been cheating for years. Your wife is just the latest in a long line of office conquests. But she's different." "Different how?" "She's ambitious. She's not content to just be the side piece. She wants more." Jessica pulled out a tablet and showed me a series of documents: bank statements, email printouts, what looked like corporate financial records. "Your wife has been helping Victor embezzle money from his clients," she said matter-of-factly. "Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, very sophisticated. She's not just sleeping with my husband, she's helping him steal." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "How much?" "Best estimate? About $200,000 over the past 8 months. Jesus. It gets worse. They've been planning to disappear together. New identities, offshore accounts, the whole 9 yards. Your divorce was just the first step." I set down my glass with a shaking hand. "How do you know all this?" "I'm a forensic accountant, Jack. Following money trails is what I do. And when I suspected Victor was cheating, I started following his money very carefully." She showed me more documents: travel bookings, real estate listings in the Cayman Islands, email exchanges between Victor and various financial institutions. "They were going to vanish in 6 months," she continued. "Take the money and run, leaving us both holding the bag. Victor would have been long gone before anyone discovered the missing funds." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want them destroyed, professionally, financially, personally. I want them to lose everything, the way they plan to destroy us." I studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. All I saw was cold, controlled fury, the kind that came from being betrayed by someone you'd trusted completely. "What do you propose?" She smiled, and it was terrifying. "I propose we give them exactly what they deserve. But we do it smart. We do it legal, and we do it in a way that ensures they never recover." Over the next 2 hours, Jessica laid out a plan that was breathtaking in its scope and precision. She'd been preparing for this conversation for weeks, gathering evidence, consulting with lawyers, building an airtight case. "First, we report the embezzlement to the FBI," she said. "I have enough evidence to trigger a federal investigation. That freezes all of Victor's assets and puts him under criminal scrutiny." "What about Lena?" "She's implicated in the financial crimes. As soon as the investigation starts, she'll be arrested as an accessory. Her career is over, and she'll be looking at serious prison time." "And Anna?" Jessica's expression softened slightly. "Your daughter is a minor. She'll be protected. In fact, once the truth comes out, she'll probably want to distance herself from her mother's choices." It was brutal, efficient, and completely legal. It was also exactly what they deserved. "There's one more thing," Jessica said. "I want to make this public. Not just the legal proceedings. I want everyone to know what they did. Your neighbors, their co-workers, everyone who thought they were the wronged parties in this situation." "How?" She pulled out her phone and showed me a social media account with thousands of followers. "I've been documenting Victor's infidelities for months. Photos, videos, financial records. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to post everything." "Everything?" "Everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the escape plan. By noon tomorrow, Victor and Lena will be the most hated couple in the city." I thought about Anna, about the fallout this would create for her at school, in the community. Then I thought about Lena's betrayal, Victor's smugness, the years of being made to feel inadequate while they planned to rob me blind. "Do it," I said. Jessica raised her glass. "To revenge." "To justice," I corrected. "Same thing, in this case." We drank, and I felt something settle into place inside me. For months, I'd been reacting to events, letting other people control the narrative of my life. Now, for the first time, I was taking action, and it felt good. Jessica walked me to the door, and as I was leaving, she put a hand on my arm. "Jack, you should know this is going to get ugly before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" "After what they put me through, I'm prepared for anything." "Good, because tomorrow we go to war." I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, past houses where families were settling in for the evening, watching TV, helping kids with homework, living normal lives. 24 hours ago, I'd been one of them. Now I was something else entirely, a man with nothing left to lose. And as any military strategist will tell you, that's the most dangerous kind of enemy there is. The FBI arrived at Victor's office at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I know the exact time because Jessica texted me a photo of the agents walking into the building along with a single word: showtime. I was at my own office, pretending to work while actually refreshing news websites every 30 seconds. The first report started appearing around 11, local executive arrested in embezzlement scheme, financial crimes investigation rocks insurance industry. By noon, Jessica's social media post had gone viral. She'd titled it, "How I Discovered My Husband Was a Thief and a Liar," and it was devastating. Photos of Victor and Lena at restaurants, hotels, corporate events where they thought they were being discreet, financial documents showing the money trail, screenshots of text messages that left no doubt about their relationship or their plans. The post had been shared thousands of times within hours, with comments ranging from supportive, "You're a hero for exposing this," to vindictive, "Hope they both rot in prison," to simply shocked, "I can't believe people actually do this stuff." My phone started ringing around 12:30. Reporters, neighbors, distant relatives who wanted the inside scoop. I ignored them all except for one call from Anna. "Dad?" Her voice was small, confused. "There are reporters at school. They're asking about Mom. Where are you now?" "In the guidance counselor's office. She says I can go home early if I want." "Do you want to?" Silence. Then, "I don't know where home is anymore." That broke my heart a little. "Home is wherever you feel safe, sweetheart. If that's with me, you're welcome. If it's with your mom, I understand." Mom's not answering her phone. Because Lena was probably in federal custody by now, but I didn't want to tell Anna that over the phone. "Come home," I said. "We'll figure this out together." Anna arrived an hour later, driven by the guidance counselor who gave me a sympathetic look and a business card for a family therapist who specialized in crisis situations. Apparently, having your mother arrested for embezzlement qualified as a crisis situation. Who knew? We sat in the living room, the same room where Jessica had confronted Victor just days earlier, and I tried to explain what was happening without completely destroying Anna's image of her mother. "Mom made some bad choices," I said carefully. "She got involved in something illegal with Victor." "The money stuff?" "You know about that?" Anna looked embarrassed. "I heard her on the phone sometimes. She was always talking about accounts and transfers and stuff. I thought it was just work." "It was work, just not the legal kind." "Is she going to jail?" The question hung in the air between us. I could lie, tell her everything would be fine, that Mom would come home soon, and we'd all work it out. But Anna was 16, not 6. She deserved the truth. "Probably," I said, "for a while." She started crying then. Not the angry tears of a teenager, but the broken sobs of a child whose world had just collapsed. I held her while she cried, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I wondered if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered the escape plan, the offshore accounts, the way they'd planned to disappear and leave us with nothing. My sympathy evaporated. The doorbell rang around 4 o'clock. Through the window, I could see news vans lining the street, reporters with cameras and microphones waiting for a statement. I ignored them and answered the door to find Detective Sarah Chen from the local police department. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Detective Chen. I was hoping we could talk." I let her in, noting how she took in the house with professional interest, looking for signs of domestic violence, financial distress, anything that might explain the situation she was investigating. "I understand this has been a difficult time for your family," she said, settling into the same chair Jessica had occupied the night before. "That's one way to put it. I need to ask you some questions about your wife's activities over the past year, financial activities specifically." For the next hour, Detective Chen walked me through Lena's involvement in Victor's embezzlement scheme. It turned out Jessica's evidence was even more damning than I'd realized. Lena hadn't just been helping Victor steal money, she'd been the mastermind behind the operation. "Your wife has a degree in accounting," Detective Chen explained. "She designed the entire system, which accounts to target, how to move the money without triggering automatic alerts, how to cover their tracks. Victor was just the front man. So she was using him as much as he was using her. That's how it looks. They were planning to frame him for the whole thing and disappear with the money. He would have gone to prison while she lived on a beach somewhere. Even in betrayal, Lena had been smarter than everyone else in the room, including me. "There's something else," Detective Chen said. "We found evidence that your wife was planning to accuse you of domestic violence as part of the divorce proceedings. False accusations designed to ensure she got full custody of your daughter and most of your assets." The room tilted slightly. "What kind of evidence?" "Photos of bruises she inflicted on herself. A diary documenting alleged abuse that never happened. Testimony from Victor corroborating her story. But none of it was true. We know that now. But if she'd gone through with it, you would have been arrested, lost custody of Anna, and probably lost your job. By the time you proved your innocence, if you could prove it, they would have been long gone." I thought about Anna upstairs, doing homework and trying to process the fact that her mother was a criminal. I thought about the life Lena had planned to steal from me, the lies she'd been willing to tell, the people she'd been willing to destroy, and I felt the last vestiges of guilt disappear. "What happens now?" I asked. "Your wife and Victor will be formally charged tomorrow. The FBI is still investigating the full scope of the embezzlement, but we're looking at federal charges that carry significant prison time. And Anna? She'll stay with you, assuming that's what she wants. Given the circumstances, I can't imagine any judge awarding custody to someone facing federal charges." After Detective Chen left, I found Anna in her room, staring at her laptop screen with a shell-shocked expression. "It's everywhere," she said quietly. "The whole story. Kids at school are texting me. My friends don't know what to say." I sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm sorry you have to go through this. Did you know? When you signed the divorce papers, did you know about the money?" "No, I found out later." "But you planned the party thing, with Victor's wife?" "Yes." She was quiet for a long moment. "Good," she said finally. "Good?" "Mom always said you were weak, that you'd never fight for anything. I guess she was wrong." That night, under the stars, I felt peace. Lena and Victor sat in federal cells, their scheme shattered. Jessica texted, "We'd pursue civil suits to strip every stolen penny." 6 months later, the courtroom buzzed. Lena, in orange, heard 7 years. Victor, 5, plus lifelong debt. The judge condemned their callous betrayal of family. Anna squeezed my hand. Outside, neighbors whispered new scandals, oblivious to our victory. That evening, over pizza, Anna asked if her mother ever loved us. "She loved herself more," I said. "No regrets?" Jessica later asked. "None." Anna added quietly, "I'm glad you fought." I was proud of her resilience, my resolve. The quiet man had won. Our house, our future, finally ours.